Hello, welcome back to the Matt Pfeiffer Experience. I am your host, Matthew Pfeiffer, and today I have on a very special guest, Tanya Mitchell-Graham. Most of you who follow her on social media know her as TMG.
That's
And I'm not in my normal studio. I'm not in my normal setup, so I apologize in advance for those of you who are used to my normal background. But I couldn't miss out on the opportunity to speak with Tanya today. So I am excited. She is someone who I connected with on TikTok. I love her information. I love what she's putting out there. A lot of people don't necessarily care for some of the information, but regardless if you care for it or not, that's not what we're here for. We need to understand and learn the truth, and sometimes the truth is very uncomfortable. Sometimes understanding that the co-parent that you're working with also has rights. Sometimes that truth is very uncomfortable. We're going to talk about some of those uncomfortable truths, and sometimes that uncomfortable truth might be something that might work out in your favor. And so we're going to talk about that. But without further
yeah.
ado, let me introduce my guest, Tanya Mitchell-Graham. Thank you very much for being a part. She's with the TNG law firm out in Atlanta, Georgia. And so, Tanya, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Okay, well, first of all, Matt, I just want to thank you for having me. I connected with you on TikTok. I saw your content and I loved your content. So I don't know how you
Oh,
started.
it's the feeling is mutual. So,
I don't know how you started seeing mine, but I'm like, yes, oh my God, I deal with a lot of these issues
mhm.
of people. But again, I am Attorney Tanya Mitchell-Graham. People call me Attorney TMG. I have two registered trademarks for my legal services, Pitbull and a Skirt, which is a name that some clients gave me many, many years ago, a couple of decades at this point. And the other one is Gold Digger Killer. So um, I went ahead and
All
registered.
of these, yeah.
I went ahead and registered both of those trademarks in
I don't
2011.
blame you.
Yeah, and then I just for legal services, it's all
Mhm.
in the desk, but I appreciate really clients giving me nicknames. But I've been practicing family law for 32 years. I started really in about February of 1992. Back then, attorneys were able to take the bar before they graduated from law school. So I took the 1991 bar. I found out I passed on my birthday in 1991, but I was still in law school. So I had to finish out law school. I finished the semester early. I got sworn in February of 1992, and I've been practicing family law ever since then.
That is absolutely amazing. And so, you've been practicing family. You've seen a lot over the years,
Yeah.
even since you've been practicing for so long. What would you
Yes.
say is something that has changed, the biggest changes that you've seen, through those decades?
I would say some of the biggest changes that I've seen is with the change of judges. So when I became an attorney, I think I was maybe 27. I might have been 26. I'm not certain.
Yes.
But at that time, originally when I started practicing family law, I thought, just like a lot of people think,
Yeah.
that mothers are automatically entitled to custody.
Hmm.
I also thought that men don't want to pay child support.
Yeah.
And I soon found out, very soon, that I was wrong. One of the very first cases that I got with the firm that I was working for at the time was a father who wanted to have parenting time with his daughter.
Mhm.
And so, right off the bat, that was shocking. Keep in mind, I was young, I was unmarried, I had never dealt with any children. And so, in my mind, I was thinking, why does this man want to pay money to babysit his own child?
Yeah.
That's literally how just ignorant I was about
Yeah.
everything. Okay.
Yeah.
But I soon found out that a lot of the things that I thought and had heard over the years were just completely wrong. There are excellent fathers out here who want to be actively engaged and involved in their parents' lives. There are mothers who may not be the best parents
Yeah.
to raise a child. And when mom and dad are not together, what courts will do is if there's a custody battle, they will award custody to the parent that provides the best opportunities for the children. The standard is what's in the best interest of the child. And it's not who is the mother versus who is the father.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And so I learned that early. The very first gentleman that I got custody for was in 1993, and
Mhm.
he had twins. They were infants,
Mhm.
and I got him custody, primary physical custody of his children.
When that happens, when a father ends up with custody, and you know, you share a story like that on TikTok or on social media, what's typically the reaction that you get from social media or from the, you know, just from society in general when they hear that you've helped a father get custody?
Oh, I can tell you, I'm kind of ostracized.
Yeah.
It has been sometimes unpleasant. And as I shared with you, Matt, before we started recording, because of sometimes the animosity and sometimes just pure hate that I've received, because I've worked hard to get a good father, primary physical custody,
Right.
I've used the P.O. box for my law firm address since the year 2000
Yeah.
because I used to have to call the police to get people out of my office when I was in downtown Decatur.
Yeah.
So everybody's not pleased with it, but sometimes dad is the better parent, and mom does not have to be unfit. And that's the thing that really surprises people. They think that if dad is going to have custody, that something's wrong with mom. Either
Mhm.
she's a drug addict, she's homeless, she's some kind of criminal or gangster. But no, the legal standard is what's in the best interest of the child or children.
Yeah. When you say that mom doesn't have to be that she doesn't have to be like a, you know, deadbeat or anything like that. Like what does that look like, and what does that and what does that mean? Does that mean that um she could be potentially a good mother, but that she could still end up losing custody? Like how does something like that happen?
I can give you 1,000 examples. I've had examples where, let's say, mom works at night
Yeah.
and there's a small child who cannot be left alone. And let's say dad works a job. His job is in the daytime. He's available to get the child from school, do homework, do dinner, and all the nighttime routines. But mom, because of her work schedule, she's just not as available. That's one scenario. I've had other scenarios where mom has bounced around from um, job to job to job, and maybe working different types of jobs that cause her to get the child to school late,
Yeah.
or she's not able to help as much with homework. And dad may have, again, a regular job where his schedule is more structured and he's more available. Then
Mhm.
I've had mothers who have moved from place to place to place,
Yeah.
and in particular moved to different school districts. So they'll start, the child will be in one county for pre-K, then their lease will be up.
Yeah.
And instead of staying within the same county and trying to keep their child within the same school district, they'll move all the way to a different county. They'll
Yeah.
stay there until that lease is up, and then they'll move to another county. And what happens is, every county's not the same, and it causes the child some difficulty in adjusting and learning.
Yeah.
Whereas dad may have a home, he may be stable, he may be married to somebody else,
Right.
and they've got a lot of stability going on over there at that house, whereas there's a lot of instability on mom's part, you
Yeah.
know? So I've gotten custody in those scenarios. Now I've had some things that are a little more salacious,
Yeah.
but mom's not necessarily unfit,
Right. Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
tell some, you always hear people on both ends, men and women, saying that there's a bias in court, right? That there's a bias towards men. Let's start out with the bias towards men. Is that something that is real? Is there really a bias, or is that just perception that a lot of people have narrated over time?
A bias meaning that a bias against men having
Yeah.
custody.
Hmm. Yes.
I will say that you have the law
Hmm.
first. First, we have the law. And
Right.
the law says that both parents have equal rights to custody. Now, in the state of Georgia, if dad is unmarried to mom, then what he has to do is he has to file a petition for legitimation saying
Mhm.
that he is the legal father of the child, and then he'll be on equal grounds with mom, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So the law says that we have a bunch of factors we have to consider. We have to consider the bond between the parent and the child. We have to consider the bond between the child and any siblings or even step siblings. We've got to look at the home environment. We have to look at the stability of the parent, which would mean the residence. It would also mean the job. There's just a whole litany of factors that we
Yeah.
have to consider. Then, so that's the law. Now we've got to look at the judge. Um, Judges are supposed to follow the law. Now,
Yeah.
I would be lying to you if I said that there are certain judges that people know, well, this judge here actually tends to favor moms.
Yeah.
But just as much as you have that, you have judges who favor dads.
Yeah.
Judges are human beings who come onto the bench with their personal experiences. And so, what's important for you as a litigant, a party to the case, is you've got to present the evidence to make it clear and convincing to the judge why it would be in the child's best interest to be in mom's custody or dad's custody. So,
Mhm.
I would also say, as I've gotten older, the judges have gotten younger. All
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
And so a lot of these judges are, in Georgia, you have to practice for what, like 8 years before you can be a judge. And
Mhm.
so the younger the judge, the more open they are to either parent having custody and listening to the facts. I will say that as I've been practicing, some of the older judges tended to favor women. I would say a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would end up there's two cases that pop in my mind right away where the judge initially favored mom for reasons that I believe, but
Yeah.
then later on got custody
Mhm.
because of certain provisos that we put in place in that original custody order. That if mom didn't maintain certain things, then dad would have the right to go
Right.
back. And there's also a modification of custody when there's a change of circumstances.
What about the other side of it? I hear a lot of women saying that there's actually a bias towards women, against women, in family court, and that because most judges are men, that they are going to side with men, that they don't believe cases of abuse. A lot of women who say that the kind of person that they're with is narcissistic. They feel like they're not believed and their story isn't heard. What's your experience with that?
I would say that that absolutely happens.
Mhm.
And so the best way to avoid that, I can't say that it doesn't happen because sometimes, and by the way, most judges aren't men.
Yeah.
Not here in Georgia. I think it's
Okay.
about 50-50.
Mhm.
Nowadays, I mean, there may have been mostly men. Keep in mind, I've been practicing for 32 years, so a lot of
Yeah.
some of the people that I'm talking to haven't been alive as long as I've been
Yeah.
practicing.
Mhm.
But when I first started practicing, there were female judges, but I would say that most of the judges tended to be men.
Yeah.
Now, I really feel like it's very close to equal, if
Mhm.
it's not equal. But you could have a female judge who has a bias against women.
That's very true.
You could have a female judge who has worked very hard, who has gone to school,
Mhm.
and she has achieved and worked hard, and she may have a disdain
Mhm.
for women who don't work.
Yep. Mhm. And you
And
never know people's upbringing, people's background, if they hated their mother, if they were, had bad experiences with men or women, how that can change and affect them. So,
right, which is why it's so important, I believe, to be prepared when you go to court.
right.
And so, what you have to do is be very prepared, know what the law is, and prepare your facts. Be ready to introduce your evidence. I found that a lot of women, because they believed that mom was automatically entitled to custody, they would show up to court without a lawyer.
Mhm.
And see, when you go to court without a lawyer, you're still held to the same standards as a lawyer. So
Yeah.
you have to follow the rules of evidence and you have to follow the rules of civil procedure. And you can't just get on the witness stand and talk. You have to have some evidence. And that's why I thought it was important. That's one of the TikToks I made about here's some evidence that you could use in court. Here
Yeah.
are some text messages with dates. Here are some photographs. Here are some receipts. Here
Mhm.
are some videos. Now in Georgia, only one side needs to know that a conversation or video is being recorded.
Right.
Other states, of course, is criminal. So
Hmm.
if both sides know, you just got to gather your evidence and present your case, know what the law is, and be able to present your case so that you can apply your specific facts to the law. And so if you've done that, and sometimes no matter how the judge feels, if your evidence is overwhelming,
Hmm.
the judges have to rule. They can't make decisions that are clearly erroneous or which are an abuse of discretion,
Right.
because oftentimes people can appeal those types of decisions.
Right. What type of things would you say would be useful as evidence, and other things that maybe the perception is that it's good evidence, but it's really not as strong evidence as what people might think?
Okay, well, one thing, people come in with text messages with no date. Uh,
Uh-huh.
no, no, we need a date. So
Yep.
when you have a text message or an email, you've got to be able to, first of all, it's got to be between you and the other party, because you've
Yep.
got to be able to authenticate the text message. You've got to know the date. Some documents that you present in court have to be certified. So if you want
Yep.
to say, well, Judge, he's got this long criminal history. Well, if the gentleman doesn't get up and admit to what you're saying, you've got to have some evidence other than the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Right.
So what you need to do is probably get an attorney to help you get certified copies of criminal records or criminal history. To the extent that there's a document to substantiate whatever fact you are saying. Like, you can say a fact, but if you've got something to substantiate it, if you say, well, Judge, the last time I went over his house, it was in disarray, it was junky, it was trying to get you a picture of something.
Yep.
Or the last time my child came home, look at how my child looked. When I
Right.
sent my child looked like this. You take a picture. And when my child came back, they had on the same clothes and they looked disheveled, you know. Um, but you really need evidence, like if you use pictures, the pictures
Mhm.
have to be either you, the witness, you should have taken the picture, or the person who took the picture needs to be there to authenticate the photograph. So people think they can grab stuff off the internet,
Right. Mhm.
present it in court. They cannot. That's
Mhm.
hearsay.
Yep.
It's not admissible. And
Well,
so, well, I saw him online. Now, here's something you can use on the internet, people's social media,
mhm.
especially when it's public.
Yeah. Mhm. As what I think that's something very common right now. People. I mean, we saw the whole Risa Tisa thing where
Yeah.
she's going on talking about her ex, and is and there's always this fine line. I know when I've worked with people, um, working with clients whenever I would do therapy with them, I encourage them not to because I've seen it backfire more often than it was for the good.
Yeah.
What is it like in court? Like when and the pushback I always got was, well, I should be able to share my story. I've been victimized. I've been doing this. I need to build a community. I need to be able to share my story and connect with people. And I tell people it's okay to connect with people, but you don't necessarily have to bash your soon-be ex online because it's definitely not going to win your case and it could possibly lose it.
I would agree with that. And also, if you have children involved, your children will grow up and see that.
Yeah.
So I do not encourage anyone to bash their ex online. But when I was talking about social media, I was talking about, let's say, in terms of, and keep in mind, a lot of that is perception.
Yeah.
But let's say we're in a child support case and dad's saying, listen, I have no money. I'm self employed. I make $2,000 a month, and they haven't provided any financial information. In fact, all of their accounts are in somebody else's name, but they're online showing their house, multiple vehicles, trips,
Yeah.
etc. Because a court can impute income, especially if, let's say, the mom in this instance was in a relationship with this guy and she knew how the money was flowing then.
Mhm.
Nothing's changed on, Judge, these are pictures of the stuff we did together, and this is the stuff he's doing now. Same
Yeah.
thing, still making the money. So that thing, but as far as, people do have their First Amendment rights,
Yeah.
but it's not very helpful if you're saying negative and disparaging things about another parent.
Yeah.
That's really going to be harmful to your case.
Yeah.
And I've had some judges, even though you have the right, your First Amendment right, they have put in the order that, hey, you can't post this other person. You can't, say their name or something, especially when I'm dealing with a client that may be a public figure.
Yeah.
And so, the disgruntled ex wants to get on social media and say, oh, well, my wife cheated on me. She's a no good, this, that, and the other,
Yeah.
or my husband did this to me. Most judges don't like
Yeah.
that. They just don't. And it's especially not good if there are children involved because the children may see that.
One of the things I've always found interesting is when one or both people start dating before their divorce is done,
Ah,
and how that how that person impacts, even sometimes it's just their presence, them being involved, but then there's other times where they're actually chipping in, their advice, what they would do. Is that something that's common, or is that just something that happens every once in a while?
oh my God. So, I try to tell my clients if you could just hold up
Yeah.
on dating before your divorce. Now, that's only in divorce cases
Yeah.
because if they were never married, then hey, it is what it is. But if you're going through a divorce, I've had clients, I literally had a client once who was actually engaged to this girl before he was divorced. And my God, they said it on the witness stand, and it infuriated the judge.
Yeah.
Just simply, the judge is like, "You got to get divorced first,
Yeah.
sir."
Uh-huh.
You can't, the judge really let him have it. So it's not a good thing. You just got to think about the totality of the situation if
Huh.
you're a married person, particularly if you have children. What kind
Yeah.
of lessons are you trying to teach to your child openly dating before you're even divorced?
Yeah.
I mean, I try to tell my clients, to the extent possible, hold on, just
Nice.
wait. It'll be worth it.
Nice.
It really will, and I know it's easier said than done, I guess, especially if you're in one of these 3-year divorces
Yeah.
that some of
Well,
my clients find themselves in. But it's just a horrible thing to start dating openly. I would say, my God, be discreet at least.
mhm.
Um,
But it seems like that's the opposite of what people typically want to do. People always want to rub it in the other person's face that they moved on, that they're doing better, and it's like the complete opposite of what they and what about even getting to the extent of someone trying to get their kids to call their new significant other mom or dad, or like really like try to create this replacement theory.
Oh yeah, well, I definitely tend to use that against people in court when I say,
Yes.
okay, mom is trying to keep dad from seeing his kid,
Yeah.
and now she's gotten married and she's trying to basically just push dad out and move this new guy in. You
Yeah.
just really can't do that. So I really use that kind of evidence against them in court, and usually if we've got some clear evidence of that type of thing, that replacement theory, that's a
Yeah.
terrible thing. That's normally helpful. A lot of times we may get what's called a guardian ad litem involved
Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
these that will conduct an investigation of both parties. But then
Yeah.
you have a lot of parental alienation too that goes on with parents who will say something negative and disparaging about the other parent,
Yeah.
then post up this new stepdaddy like he is, super dad.
Yes.
The digs into the kids. It does a lot of damage. And you know
Yeah.
what? I practiced long enough where I've seen some of these kids become adults and then they started having problems in their own personal relationships because of the
Yeah.
damage done to them as a child by their own parents.
You brought up a phrase that I think was a really hot topic in 2023, maybe 2022. Um, Parental alienation.
Mm.
I mean, you say that word online. I mean, get ready for a fight. Get ready for a battle. If you're definitely going to go viral, your comment section is probably going to be in the thousands.
Uh,
Because
yeah.
there's a good portion of people who don't even believe that parental alienation exists.
Mhm.
You see a lot of different groups who protest and picket and say that it's really actually mothers who are trying to protect their kids from abusive men. And you have both men and women saying that it does exist, like I experienced it, and this person is actively trying to keep the kids away from me or saying horrible things about me to the kids. Where do you stand with it? Where does the court, stand with it? Is parental alienation a real thing?
Absolutely, it's absolutely a real thing. It's absolutely a real thing where a parent will try to keep the child from the other parent and then say things about, well, your dad doesn't really love you anyway. You see, he's got that new woman. He loves
Right.
her and her children.
Yeah.
And after a while, parental alienation will manifest in the child in other ways, typically at school.
Yeah.
So all sorts of things can happen. They may become withdrawn. They may start doing poorly in their schoolwork, whereas they were doing well before. They may go in. Sometimes parents are able to convince their kids to go into school and say something false
Mhm.
about the other parent, which may cause defects. The Department of Family and Children's Services, you call it something else in other places. Child Protective Services, I think they
Yeah.
call it. And that will get them involved, and it's a whole big deal. And it's really hard. I think it's really hard to undo parental alienation, even if, sometimes it's so bad that the parent who missed out on his parenting time has to have like a reunification
Yeah.
with their own child and an expert involved in all sorts of counseling.
And it's
And
expensive too.
I was gonna say, and money spent
Yeah.
just to have a relationship with your child. And then sometimes the relationship can be repaired, sometimes it can't. And parental alienation happens on both sides. Sometimes a father may alienate the children from the mother.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can go through reunification, or you get a child to say something like, "Oh, I'll kill myself if I have to see the other parent."
Mhm.
That's so severe. That's
Yeah.
so harmful to the child.
Mhm.
And put that kind of thought in the child. Well, if I've got to spend time with my mom, I'm going to cut my wrist. Or if I've
Mhm.
got to spend time with my dad, I'm going to hang myself. I mean, what are you doing? Now you've got your child
Yeah.
labeled at school, in addition to the personal damage you've done to them.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing, and it's really hard to undo.
Yeah.
It's really hard. You've got to get therapists involved, and like I said, sometimes DFACs and other
Yeah.
services, psychologists. It's a mess.
When if someone for someone who might be listening to this, who might be experiencing it, what is their first step? Is their first step to contact an attorney? Is their first step to contact, Child and Family Services? What's their first step?
Well, it depends on the status of the relationship. If they're just trying to see the child and there's no parenting time being allowed, then definitely they need to contact an attorney. If there's an order already established and now there's a contempt, there may need to be a guardian ad litem appointed. There may need to be a child psychologist
Mhm.
involved. There might need to be a parental fitness evaluation. There's a lot that has to go on to kind of reunify this parent with their
Yeah.
child before it's too late. Before you know it, they're 18 or so,
Yeah.
or they're 15 to 16, and it's going to be hard to get an
Yeah.
almost grown child to spend time with their parent if they've been, so far alienated.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Absolutely.
So the
Tanya, this has been absolutely amazing. I want you to tell people, like, if someone wanted to work with you, or if they wanted to refer a friend or family member, where would they be able to find you at?
Oh, okay. Well, we're in Atlanta. They can call the office. The plate it's 770-492-9013. They can email us at info@tmgesq.com. They can reach out to my business Instagram page, which is at TMGPC. And then for myself personally on all platforms, I am at TMGESQ. So that would be Twitter, Instagram. Of course, my favorite TikTok. Let's figure out how we can keep
Mhm.
talk.
Yeah,
Spit
absolutely.
it.
And
But
if
yeah,
you're watching this on, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can go down into the description. All of her information will be there as well.
thank you.
And so you make sure you guys also make sure you comment down below something, a takeaway, something you may have learned today that maybe you didn't know before. Make sure you show Tanya some love on all of her social media platforms. Give her some follows, comment, send her some DMs, and let her know how much you appreciate the time that she's given. With all that being said, thank you so much. This is the Matt Pfeiffer Experience. I'm your host, Matthew Pfeiffer. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mac.